It's like if This Is Us was a horror. The Haunting of Hill House is written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who's done Ouija 2, Oculus, and most notably Doctor Sleep that came out last year. Most recently, he's also done The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I will be doing a review on at the end of the month after I've binge-watched the entire thing. The Haunting of Hill House is based on a book by Shirley Jackson and stars a ton of people, including Carla Gugino, Henry Thomas from E.T., most notably, and a bunch of other actors and actresses from various TV shows like You, Game of Thrones, and movies like The Invisible Man. And it's basically about these kids who grew up for a summer in this house that the parents were flipping, and they were going to renovate it and then get a bunch of money out of it. And it's a huge mansion, but it is haunted, and the kids are the ones that usually see most of the ghosts. This is carried into their adult lives after one specific terrifying night where they're dragged out of their beds by their dad, put in the car, and driven away to leave their mom in the house. They don't know what happened that night, and they don't know why, but it has carried with all of them throughout their lives into their adulthood and has affected each of them in very different and equally terrible ways. I love this show. Mike Flanagan has done it once again. He has a really good authority over horror and doing things that are both fun and entertaining, but pretty scary and very real life. It's just such a well-written show based off the book, but it visually is just so interesting and it really grabs you. The cinematography is wonderful. It's like very extremely soft lighting, which is something Mike Flanagan does very well in all of his work. He has very, very soft lighting. It's almost like it has to be done in post because of how soft it is. And there's obviously a lot of color correction and everything done as well, but the cinematography is just so beautiful. All the moving shots. There is one episode that is completely made up, for the most part, until the end, of long takes. It's 4 long takes, and one of them, I shit you not, is 16 minutes long. It's incredible. If you're not looking for it, you don't even realize it until maybe 15 minutes in, and you're like, wait a minute, that's the first time I've actually seen an edit. And I can't even imagine trying to film something like that. Like, what if you got 14 minutes in, and then somebody messed up? You gotta go over the whole thing again. Like, but the thing that really, really gets me in this show is the writing and specifically the characters, which go hand in hand because it is a very character-based show, and the writing goes to serve all of those characters. It's very well paced. There's 10 episodes, there's basically one episode per character because there's 7 family members and then a few extras to sort of tie them together. And they really dive into each of them. They are just so well written and such likable, for the most part, characters. We have Steve, who is the oldest brother, and he is kind of a dick to his family because he is writing a book based on their trauma because he didn't believe it actually happened. There's Shirley, who is kind of an overly controlling perfectionist, thinks that she has to fix everything, like her father. There's Theo, who she has this specific power that she can feel other people's emotions, and so she has a lot of emotional trauma with that as well because she feels all of these things, whether it's a lot of stress or a lot of depression, whatever it might be. She has all of that on her. And then there's Luke, who is probably the most obvious of the messed up ones. He's a drug addict, and he's been to rehab, and it's just this circle that the siblings are just tired of dealing with it because all he does is ask for money or drugs. And then there's Nell, who's the youngest by 90 seconds because she and Luke are twins, and her thing that she's dealing with is basically depression from everything that's happened and seeing things from her past that are kind of still haunting her. Then there's the parents, who we have the mom, who a lot of things affect her, and we don't know exactly what went on with her. And then the dad, who has to deal with what happened in the past and what he can't tell his children, even though they're very angry at him for not telling them, but also what's going on now with all of his kids dealing with everything. And while this is a horror, it's like I said, this is basically This Is Us, but scary. It is at its very core a family drama, but so well done. It's not like stupid stuff. And even when it gets into cliches, I won't say what, but cliches about the family dramas, it's for a very specific purpose. It's for a very specific motivation in each character. The writing for each of them is just incredible. It's one of those that it just takes all these little details, all these little family traditions, and bookends them in their childhood and in their adult life. It connects things, it has traditions, it has all these things that it raises these questions about what was that little thing, what was that little thing, and then it comes back later on in such an emotional way that it almost makes you cry. The pacing is just so good. The scares are really good because it doesn't rely on, for the most part, jump scares or things that are just very cliched. If there is a jump scare, it's extremely unexpected. I think I had what was the absolute biggest jump scare I have ever experienced in this show. I was not prepared. I had to call a friend after it actually happened because it freaked me out so much. My heart was pumping, and apparently my natural reaction to adrenaline is to cry. There are so many good ways to build suspense. There's a lot of long moving shots, some kind of slow shots, lingering on things well after a character has left the frame, focusing on details that you know are probably going to come later. There's just all these little questions that are built, whether it's little details or whether it's big things like what's behind this door. You can really trust in the direction to get you where you need to go, and it trusts its audience to understand what's happening. I will say that gets into probably my only big con of the show is that the first 8 episodes are like perfect. Perfect. The last 2 for me kind of flopped a little in different ways. The second to last episode flops for me a little bit because it just doesn't answer as many questions as thoroughly as it should have, because we are building all these questions about what happened to the mom. And in the 9th episode, we start to find out more of these details about that night. And I think with all of the things that they have brought up, all of these little moments, you're like, what was that? I don't think they answered it as thoroughly as they should have. And then I thought, okay, maybe the 10th episode will answer it. And actually, I feel like the last episode is the worst episode because it completely shifts tone. It still doesn't answer a lot of questions. And what it does answer in both these episodes don't feel like it feels like it's going to be a twist, or it's going to be something we didn't see really happening. But there's a lot of questions that it's just like, yeah, that's the answer. It just didn't happen, or it did happen. There's no real reason for it. And specifically with the last episode, I don't want to say it's boring, but it is a lot of talking. It's a lot of fancy dialogue and not enough things going on. I will say it makes sense, since it's a very character-based show, that it would deal with the characters and them coming to terms with things. But for also being a haunting show, there wasn't as much of that in the last episode, and there are a lot of questions that are raised that never get answered about the house. And it kind of shifts our reasoning from, oh, the house is malevolent, to the house is maybe not so bad, or the ghosts, they're there to do one thing in the beginning, and then by the end they're kind of there to do something else. And it kind of changes some things last minute. Now, a really big reason for this is that Mike Flanagan said that they had an idea for the ending of the show, and he woke up the night before they were going to film, and he said that he felt guilty about how it was going to end. So he wanted to make it a little bit more happy. It's wrapped up sort of in a bow, and that doesn't work for the show. I get that he wanted to treat his audience right after going through all this trauma, but I think that it sacrifices a lot of the integrity of the show by doing that, because it was very hallmarky. It was pretty underwhelming, especially because once you get past the 8th episode, it's like, wow, we are into some like really awesome culmination stuff here. And then it kind of like just goes, eh. So that was my big con, mostly because it's not a middle episode. It is the end. That's what wraps everything up. That's where you get all the answers. And yet we kind of either don't, or we do get some okay answers, or it just seems overall, eh. That being said, overall, this show is awesome. It's incredible. It's got some really awesome scares and is very deep in family. It's very classic Mike Flanagan, talking about family and the importance of sticking together and things like returning home and meeting those things from your childhood that were haunting you and now you have to face them. He's got a very good sense of the things that he likes to do, and he's good at putting those themes into his different pieces of art and works that he does without it seeming repetitive. So while it does sort of go down a little bit for me towards the end, which is disappointing considering it is the end, there are plenty of things to make up for that in the rest of this show. I think it's one of those that the show itself, the characters surpass the ending. Yes, it's sort of disappointing and it leaves you on such a weird note, but there's still so much content, so much depth, and so much material in those other 8 episodes that it really kind of balances out because it gives you a little bit more. And there are some incredible performances. There is so much suspense, and I think it's overall one of the best shows to come out of Netflix for sure. I'm going to give Haunting of Hill House a 3.5 out of 4. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about The Haunting of Hill House if you've seen it. Also, let me know who your favorite sibling is. I know that there are 2 generally unliked ones and 3 really liked ones. I know Theo is the fan favorite, but I think I'm going to have to cheat a little bit and say Luke and Nell. They are twins, so they're kind of a package deal, so I think I can say that. But if I really, really had to pick, I think I'd say Luke because he's such a teddy bear and he's just, there's so much depth on the inside. But if I'm being quite honest, I also kind of have a crush on Nell. I mean, who couldn't have a crush on Nell? Just, she's so great. Well, okay. I'm going to be doing a Haunting of Bly Manor review, like I said, at the end of the month. So keep a lookout for that. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and Halloween right in the middle. See you guys later.